This episode of 7-4A Division One is brought to you by Granny's Bakeries, located at 401 West Pecan Street in Salina. You can give them a call at 469-352-8806. You can also find them online at grannysweeties.com. Now, this place is amazing. Not only do they have just amazing baked goods like cakes, pastries, amazing smelling bread, great taste too. But man, I just absolutely love homemade bread being made and the smell it is. They have a coffee bar, they have a grab and go, they have beer and wine, they have a cupcake factory. I'm sorry, that just sounds awesome. Anytime a place has a cupcake factory, that is a win. But you know what also is awesome about Granny's Bakery is she wants to be able to pass her knowledge on, and she does that with classes. You can call to book a private class, 469-352-8806. And I'll tell you how popular it is. They're having a cake decorating with wine coming up in a few days. That class is already sold out. But don't worry, they have other ones such as their buttercream cookie decorating. That's Sunday, October 14th. It's about an hour and a half, starts at 10:30 a.m., absolute blast as you get to learn how to, decorate. And the holidays are coming up, man. This is perfect. If you've always wanted to do that and have that big traditional where you have cookies out and stuff, you can learn how to decorate with buttercream. It's amazing. They also have things like charcuterie board class. That's where you learn how to do the fancy charcuterie boards, or however you say that. I call them football snacks. Anyway, that class is October 14th. I'm sorry, it's October 21st, 1 to 2 o'clock Central Standard Time, of course. You can book online. Go to grannysweeties.com/classes. Also, like I said, if you'd like to have some kind of private class, and that's a great thing, cake with wine, decorating with wine, do a private one for a birthday and stuff. Give them a call, 469-352-8806. 7-4A Division One ramps up, and we're here to talk about it. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett here on the Granny's Bakery 7-4A Division One show, right here on S2S Sports, part of L4 Media. As Matt Diggs and I will be breaking down all the action from last week and this week on 7-4A Division One, and we got a couple key matchups. So we're going to just jump right into it because we talked a lot this week. We talked 7-4A. We ended up talking East Texas because we're kind of starting to compare that second round or that first round matchup, which will be with the East Texas district. So here's Matt Diggs and I talking 7-4A Division One. Salina, I think, kind of shocked the 4A world, beating Anna a couple weeks ago, 42-40. But you bring up a good point when we were about to start recording. Salina won the scoreboard, but, that's about the only thing they won. Give them credit for getting the win, but Anna outgained them by 100 yards. Anna, at times looked like they were ready to kind of step on the gas, but give Salina credit. They never let them pull away.
Yeah, ultimately, at the end of the day, and one of my assessments in assuming Anna versus Salina is Salina's been there. And when you have a program that is a pedigree and all the way from 8th grade, I mean, they've been winning. There's a culture of winning. There's an expectation of winning. And Anna, this is really only developed as of last year from them being a legitimate team. And there's still a bit of a mixed match of move-ins because Anna is such a growing area right now, to where Salina is still the man. Even though they lost 2 times last year to Anna, they're still the team that is got the pedigree. And just like we see with Gunter and some of these Northern Collin County teams, when you have that pedigree, it matters a lot. It puts a touchdown on the scoreboard. When you get up 2 touchdowns like Anna did against Salina, it's that understanding that you don't give up and that you understand how to get back in the game. And Anna doesn't necessarily know how to put the foot on the throat and take care of business quite yet. That's something they're going to learn. That's something that, Coach Parr is going to be teaching and getting to elevate Anna's program up to that. But it takes years to do that. There's a reason why you and I always lament when we get into December, it's the same old programs playing the same old games every year. It's because there is something to be said for the culture as far as that goes. So I was expecting Salina to bounce back, but a couple of things I've been worried about Salina. They're very big into style points. And what I mean by that, like take that game against Bishop Lynch earlier in the year. That game was like 50-50 game up till about the third quarter. But in the fourth quarter, they piled on 35 points. I think they really understand the perception of having these big games and these big blowouts. And I think they care about that a little bit too much. I mean, kind of saw that last week with the Ranchview game where they're up 76-2 at halftime, and finally pulled back after that element. Whereas Anna is a very good team. They just have a lot to learn. But even though you and I both picked Salina and we were both expected them to win, like you said, looking back at it, I feel like Anna was probably the better team. Now that I don't know how that's going to translate to the playoffs if they have a rematch like they did last year, because Salina is building confidence, and for once, they're actually going to get tested in district. I don't think they're going to be tested as far as are they going to win or lose, but they're going to have to play some tough games in district. They're not going to just blow through everything, 70-0 at halftime with JV kids playing all the second halves in most of the games. So I think that could actually get Salina and keep them a little bit crisper going into the playoffs, whereas I don't think Anna is going to get pushed nearly as much in their district.
All right, well, let's go ahead and talk the rest of 7-4A because I bring up Frisco Panther Creek. The Panthers last year 3-8. They made the playoffs. In fact, they played Anna and got destroyed in it. And I think a lot of people, including me, thought that they were going to start a little stronger last year. Their wins were against North Dallas, Pinkston, and Ranchview. They lost to Carter. They lost to Wilmer Hutchins. This year, it's been the exact opposite. They're 4-1. Their only losses to Emerson, 48-31. But you could also make the case that who they've played, Aubrey is nowhere near where they were last year. So how real is that 4-1 for the Panthers?
I think it's very real because you look at the Frisco Emerson game and, you're getting, if you're seeing that kind of play out in real time, you're seeing updates where, they were up on Frisco Emerson at times. And Frisco Emerson is widely thought of as a 5A Division II team that is a legitimate state contender.
Yes.
Probably right now the favorite to win 5A or 5A Region 1 and get to the state semifinals. I don't know if they'll beat whoever comes out of Region 2, whether that's Melissa, South Oak Cliff, Lovejoy, or any of the other teams that are going to be playing good football out of Region 2. But the fact that they were able to play with Emerson for as long as they did, I think immediately indicates that this team is a real team who can be a threat in the right circumstances. Some of the computer polls I'm looking at actually have them against Salina as a 50-50 game. I don't think it's a 50-50 game at all. I think Salina is probably a 2-3 score favorite over Panther Creek, and I'm going to go see Panther Creek this week so I can see them with my own eyes. I know that Braxton Roberts is a special player, and he has been doing big things. And when you have a team like this and with Emerson who bring everybody back and you have that consistency, I think we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years when you think of Shadow Creek and Manville and Pato and some of these other teams that built up and got to bring everybody back. There's just a special chemistry that builds. So I think Panther Creek is a very scary team in 7-4A. And Salina, if they play a little bit down and thinking, we can beat anybody in this district, Panther Creek is good enough with maybe a turnover or two to beat them in that game. But I think Salina will avoid that temptation because they're coming out and playing every game hard, as we refer to when they beat Ranchview 76-2, and that game was a completely first half game when they were able to score those 11 touchdowns.
Now, is Panther Creek, are they going to stay 4A or are they one of those they're going up to 5A?
Yeah, they'll be going up to 5A Division II, I have to imagine. I mean, they're one of the bigger schools in this district as it is. Only North Dallas and Carter are a little bit bigger than them. But they're adding they're adding students left and right. And they're basically playing this 4A Division I with probably 5A Division II, maybe even low-end 5A Division I numbers, which gives them a depth advantage when they bring everybody back like they did anyway. But even their second and third teams are being built up right now with underclassmen who are getting valuable reps and valuable playing time. And if they get to go 3-4 deep, depending on how the playoff road runs, that's going to be huge for next year as well. So this is something that is building upon itself. And Panther Creek is a fun program to watch. And again, like you and I always, lament that we're tired of seeing the same old teams again. It's fun to talk about a new team, even though it's a growing, burgeoning area over there at Panther Creek and Frisco ISD. So it's fun to see a school that's able to actually push around Salina and not be intimidated by Salina and Anna and some of the other big schools. But when we're talking about this 4A Division One Region Two, this is really the murderer's row. And
Yeah.
by round two, you're playing somebody who, in any given week, could theoretically win this region. So it's going to be a tough road for them. But this district is definitely going to get them prepared for that.
How do you look at Carter? Because I like what they did, and they haven't played the toughest schedule, but I like what they did in three of their games. But that Sunnyvale loss. Now, in saying that, they have this weird thing against Sunnyvale. They cannot beat Sunnyvale, and Sunnyvale's a solid 4A Division II team, but this isn't the Sunnyvale of a couple years ago that was state ranked, and a lot of people thought would make a deep run. So, where do you see Carter fitting in this district?
That there's a couple of head scratchers there because 4A Division II and DFW area districts is bad. I mean, it's just flat out bad. And I've got Sunnyvale as my number one team in 4A Division II, but it's not a confident 4A. It's not, they're not state ranked. It's not a team that you can think can do anything, especially when you have District 7 and 8 with Gilmer and Pleasant Grove and Carthage. And obviously the big dogs are out in East Texas in 4A Division II and in Region 2. And if you hear some of the people on some of the Facebook groups talking about that Sunnyvale Carter game, you're going to hear officiating and this and that and intimidation. And I always I'm a little skeptical when somebody says, coaching and or refereeing and whatnot. But at the same time, you look at that game, and as big of a head scratcher as that is, on the other side, what they did to Kimball is immediately, oh, well, this is what they are capable of, because Kimball is a very good 5A Division II team. I'm not saying they're going to win a playoff game or anything, but I think they'll be competitive in the playoffs. And I think they're running through 5A Division II, the lower tier Dallas schools like nothing. And they're winning impressively. Bam Harrison, the coach over there, is doing a great job at Kimball, and Carter handled them without, and that's a rivalry game. They handled them without any sort of problem. So I think Carter, right now I have them at number 3 in this district, but they're going to be competitive with Panther Creek. They might be competitive with Salina. It's just a mental game with them because they don't have a lot of depth over there. So are they going to go into the game like against Sunnyvale, where they're feeling like we're not going to win, something is going to happen, and we're not going to be able to overcome that adversity? Or are they going to be playing like they did with Kimball, with that swagger, where they're ready to come in there and we're full on Carter, and we're getting back to the old ways of Carter? I don't know where their mindset is, because you've seen these disparate outcomes with Kimball, which they overachieved, and then Sunnyvale, where they underachieved. But they're very good. I think they're way better than the bottom 4 in this district. And in previous years, that wouldn't be much. But this year, with Wilmer Hutchins and Pinkston and even North Dallas, to a certain extent, playing above their pay grade, that is saying something, because if you mess around with any of those couple of teams, at the bottom, they're going to beat you. So you got to be coming out and ready to play each and every week. Now Pinkston's going to be playing, after losing to Wilmer Hutchins last week, a very dangerous freestyle kind of game where they got to steal one now.
Yes.
And they're probably looking at Carter as their best chance to do that.
Yeah, I talked about that last week, and I'm a very big proponent of when you look at a team like Pinkston or even North Dallas or Wilmer Hutchins, it's not about running through the district unbeaten. I mean, that's nice and all, but it's knowing who you have to beat to make sure you get in the playoffs. And I talked about that last week for Pinkston. That was basically an elimination game, and I still think it is. Now, I know Campbell has it that Carter's a 4-point favorite. I don't see that. I think that when they play, I think Carter handles Pinkston pretty well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And on Twitter, a couple of the Wilmer Hutchins players tagged me in some thoughts, and like, what do you think, Professor Diggs, of this game? And I mentioned exactly what you mentioned, that I thought it was an elimination game, and you have to be hyper focused on it. And they said that's what their coaches were preaching. So I mean, the coaches understood the gravity of last week, that this is basically week 1 of the district play. You're playing for the playoffs right here and right now. And they got up for it. And Wilmer Hutchins has been a team, if you look over the last 3 to 4 weeks, they have been increasingly getting better. And that's what happens when you have a lot of sophomores on the team, and they're getting that confidence and playing hard. I looked at their Northside game. That 12-9 game was an ugly football game, and Northside is not a team that you expect much from. And I was kind of getting a little bit down on Wilmer Hutchins. But then when they started, when they beat Hillcrest the way they did, I feel like they woke up. Something from that north side game to where they woke up against Hillcrest, they woke up and then they completely obliterated Pinkston. And so I'm a believer. And now at this point, I think Wilmer Hutchins is good enough to beat Carter if Carter messes around in that game. But I do think there is a pretty big disparity between Carter and Pinkston. And I think Carter's going to be down on themselves now because now they're going to feel like we've lost our chance to, get it. I feel like they might already be defeated because they didn't put up much fight against Wilmer Hutchins, not even second half fight, not even garbage time fight. Wilmer Hutchins completely had their way. So a lot of times it's about the belief with some of these teams that are just learning how to win, and 4-0 Pinkston is just learning how to win. And I feel like psychologically they may already be done.
I genuinely think Wilmer Hutchins could end up second in this district. I legitimately believe that. And I will say this, no matter where they end up in realignment next year, they're going to be a scary team in DFW 4A because they're going to stay in 4A, and I'm pretty sure they're going to stay D1. And you said it best. I mean, they're a team of sophomores and juniors. I think next year they had 15 returning starters coming back this year. And I think, as long as everybody stays on the team, I think they're going to have about that coming back next year. When they first came back, everybody they had that hot pick. Oh, they're back, and they started out 9-2, and then they've kind of just been bounced around that 6-5 area. I think they're breaking out of that this year. I think this year legitimately is a leaping point for the Eagles, and I think they're going to surprise some people inside this district.
I absolutely agree with you, but again, when it gets to the idea of how are you going to play in the playoffs? Let's say they get up to number 2. They might be looking at a team like Sulphur Springs. Do you feel like with any sort of confidence that a Wilmer Hutchins team can play a neutral site game against Sulphur Springs and beat them?
No. But in saying that, if I can flip it and say, if you're a Sulphur Springs, do you think that you can play a neutral site? I mean, Sulphur Springs, and I said they were the best 1-9 team in 5A 2 years ago, because if you looked at when they were 1-9, like every loss was a one loss or one possession score. But last year, I really thought they were going to come into 4A and be more, not a region favorite, but I thought they were a team that could play 2 to 3 rounds. So, I mean, I agree with you on that, but I think you could actually say the same thing for Sulphur Springs or a team like Sulphur Springs.
Absolutely. And Paris is, you could put the same kind of spin on, if you're going to be playing Paris in the first round. And Paris Sulphur Springs, that game could go either way, and they could end up flipping 2-3, 3-2, depending on how that goes. Salina in this district, assuming they win the number 1 spot, has probably got the only really safe game because, whoever gets the 4th seed, whether it's Kaufman, you're not going to be looking at that, or Nevada Community. You're not going to really be looking at that game as any sort of meaningful upset, with a 1 versus 4. But definitely Panther Creek, Wilmer Hutchins, and Carter can play with Sulphur Springs, Kaufman, or Paris, or even Nevada Community, depending on, because Nevada Community has messed around and ended up, finding its way into the playoffs more than once in a district like this. And Kaufman and Paris, they still got to learn how to win, and they're on the younger side. But Anna, you don't want to see Anna in the first round. So whoever ends up in that 4th spot has definitely got some work to do. They got to put the hard hats on.
Well, I tell you what, you don't want to play Paris in the playoffs. I have never seen a team that is 1-4 and that everybody I talk to that beats them the next week says, dude, just wait. They're changing up their offense. They ran the wing T for 15 years. They're now spreading it out and talking to Gilmer coaches, talking to Van coaches and fans, talking to Salina coaches and fans, who they all beat Paris, all come back and say, dude, this team by playoff times, if they can just keep their confidence, they're going to be scary. And after watching some of that Gilmer tape, I don't disagree. Once Paris figures things out offensively, I think Paris is one of those teams that might have 4 losses, but end up playing 2-3 rounds.
Yeah, I think it was in 2020, the COVID year, where they lost a couple of games by forfeit, and then they got in the playoffs, and all of a sudden, I think they knocked Melissa out and just started going through things. So Paris has a winning culture and a winning pedigree, and I really like their coaching staff over there. So they will be a dangerous team. But again, you mentioned, I think, that the essential thing, if they keep the confidence, if they keep their heads up, because in this district, they could very well, you talked about about them having 4 losses. They could end up having 7 losses. I mean, they could make the playoffs at 3-7. And what kind of confidence are they going to have at that point? So that's going to be the key element for them. And you got to get out of 4th because, just like we talked about how you want to avoid Anna, you want to avoid Salina. But they get 4 and 6, and, they get maybe a Wilmer Hutchins in the second round or get a Panther Creek who is brimming with lack of experience. That's definitely an upset pick.
All right, so let's go ahead and do our picks for this week in 7-4A Division I. I'm going upset in the first game. I'm saying Wilmer Hutchins gets a mini surprise and they beat Panther Creek.
Give me Panther Creek by 2 scores. And this is a game I feel like could get even worse than that because it's one of those things. I think it's either going to be a close or a blowout. And I know that sounds weird, might sound weird to listeners, but I think if they are on the point of attack better than Wilmer Hutchins, they're going to blow it out. But if it's one of those games where Wilmer Hutchins, it's a close game, I think they'll be able to keep it close. But in my gut and really looking at things and just looking at that Emerson game, because if you and I were talking and, you like Frisco Emerson against Wilmer Hutchins, what do you think, Terry? You're going to say Wilmer Hutchins or you're going to say Emerson big.
By 3 touchdowns, yeah.
So this is a team that played for 36 minutes with Emerson back and forth, and Emerson pulled away in the fourth quarter to give it the point margin. So I think Panther Creek at their best is probably 2 scores better than Wilmer Hutchins at least.
All right, Carter versus Pinkston. I have Carter winning by as many as they want.
Yeah, I mean, given that Pinkston already lost by 32 to Wilmer Hutchins, I think Carter will probably do that, if not worse. And I think, there will be a little bit of internal competition with them and their scoreboard watching. I think they want to kind of give a message to Wilmer Hutchins that we're already better than you, and we're going to walk into that game and show it. So I think they were going to look to win by more than 32.
All right, and then the last game, I know this sounds funny, but this is an elimination game for one of the two, Ranchview versus North Dallas. Both of them lost to teams above them in the district, so one of these teams is going to win and at least for another week think they have a chance for the playoffs. And I think Richard Leonard will do some good things at Carrollton Ranchview, but that is a long-term rebuild. And not that North Dallas is a great program, but North Dallas is actually, they're solid. They're 2-3. Last year they were 2-8, 3-7 a couple years ago when they made the playoffs. They're going to get beat most weeks, but this isn't the old North Dallas that it was going to be 70-0 and you moved on.
Ranchview is such a hard place to win. And I talked a little bit about this in off season with some people who are asking me about the job. What do you know about Ranchview? When you're in Valley Ranch, all those apartments over there make it so transient, and you don't necessarily get to develop kids from middle school all the way up there. You may get a boomer class because you get some move-ins, and then just as quickly they're gone. You might get some sophomores and juniors and you're excited about it, but by then they disperse and go where they want. That being said, North Dallas has a little bit of something this year, and I think North Dallas is going to win this game fairly convincingly. I'm going to give them a 3-score point margin on this one.
Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe. Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe. I do want to thank Matt for joining us as he does each and every week here on the 7-4A Division I show. He does starting going forward. He hadn't been up to this point because of scheduling conflicts, but we got those figured out. And it's going to be a fun week. And, I love talking 7-4A Division I with him, not only because he knows what he's talking about, but he like me, loves this district. I think this district's going to be fun. And it's already started out, and with the big games this week, it's hard to think that we're already in week 6. Next week's week 7 of the season. But also you're going to start seeing playoff pictures starting to form. It's still early, but they're starting to form. And like with Carter versus Wilmer Hutchins, you'll get some seeding games happening this week. Want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, thoughts, or comments for the show, email them to me, Terry at S2SSport.com. If you'd like to hear our Sideline to Sideline show where we talk 4A, we also do a 3A and 2A show as well. But it's, being a Salina fan or a 7-4A Division I fan, you're wanting to know 4A. Well, Grant Goodwin and I can tell you all the 4A happenings each and every week around the state. You can check that out at s2sgrantandterry.com or on all podcast platforms. And you can find us on YouTube as well. All right, that's going to do it for this week. Week 7's next week, and we'll talk about it then with Matt Diggs right here on the Granny's Bakery 7-4A Division I show on S2S Sports.